Well, everyone, the Biden administration and ATF are doing what they do best, finding ways to infringe on your right to bear arms. You may recall back in March of this year, President Joe Biden signed an executive order directing the Attorney General to find a way to come up with a universal background check within the existing laws. Yesterday, August the 31st, the Biden administration published the fact sheet, Biden-Harris administration takes another life-saving step to keep guns out of dangerous hands, which outlines exactly how they plan on violating your Second Amendment rights. Now, if you're like me and you're sick and tired of this administration infringing on your constitutional protected rights, be sure to hit the like button down below. Also, go ahead and click on that subscribe icon in the bottom right hand corner of this video to subscribe to the Firearm Firm channel if you haven't already done so. By liking this video and subscribing, you are not only helping our channel grow, but you are helping to fight the anti-2A algorithm that is doing its best to silence the Second Amendment community. As a result of Biden's executive order, the Attorney General signed ATF's Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, NPRM 2022-R-17, titled Definition of Engaged in the Business as a Dealer in Firearms. So let's dive into this new infringement. This proposed rule would seek to incorporate the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act definition of predominantly earn a profit, creating a standing alone definition of terrorism and amending the definition of principal objective of livelihood and profit, and engaged in the business to ensure each conforms with the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act statutory changes. ATF wanting to change a congressionally defined term. Does that sound familiar? Really what the main intent of this proposed rule is to try and make anyone who sells a firearm in a private sale a gun dealer, which means they would have to get a license from the federal government to become an FFL. Why? Because FFLs are required to run background checks on people who buy firearms from them, with very few exceptions. This is not just my personal opinion. The Biden administration tells you their intent in their publication, which says, specifically, the proposed rule, if finalized, would clarify that an individual would be presumed to be engaged in the business of dealing in firearms and therefore be required to become a licensed firearms dealer and run background checks if they meet certain conditions. For example, under the proposed rule, a person would be presumed to be required to become a licensed dealer and run background checks if they meet one or more of the following criteria. Offer for sale any number of firearms and also represents to potential buyers that they are willing and able to purchase and sell them additional firearms. Repetitively offer for sale firearms within 30 days after they were purchased. Repetitively offer for sale firearms that are like new in their original packaging. Repetitively offer for sale multiple firearms of the same make and model, or as a formerly federally licensed firearms dealer, sell firearms that were in the business inventory and not transferred to a personal collection at least a year before the sale, addressing the so-called fire sale loophole. To me, the most disturbing part of this proposed rule is that it creates presumptions in favor of the government. Instead of presuming that a law-abiding citizen is not intending on breaking the law, it presumes that they are. So now, the law-abiding citizen has the burden of rebutting the presumptions and proving that they are not a gun dealer. This is about as un-American as it can get. Whatever happened to the presumption of innocence? If you think the government is not trying to strip us of our rights, it's time to wake up. Now, I'm just going to leave it at that and get back to the rule. All right, let's talk about this proposed rule, which is, by the way, 108 pages long. As always, I will attach a link to the rule down below in the description section to this video. Now, I'm not going to go over verbatim what is contained in the 108 pages. You can read that on your own, but I do briefly want to go over the summary of the rule on ATF's website. The website says, the NPRM specifically proposes to clarify when a person is engaged in the business as a dealer in firearms at wholesale or retail by clarifying the definition of dealer and defining the terms purchase and sales as they apply to dealers, clarifying when a person would not be engaged in the business of dealing in firearms as an auctioneer or when purchasing firearms for and selling firearms from a personal collection, setting forth conduct that is presumed to constitute engaging in the business of dealing in firearms and presumed to demonstrate the intent to predominantly earn a profit from the sale or disposition of firearms, absent reliable evidence to the contrary. clarifying that the intent to predominantly earn a profit does not require the person to have received pecuniary gain, and that intent does not have to be shown when a person purchases or sells a firearm for criminal or terrorism purposes. Adding a single definition for the term personal collection of firearms, or personal firearms collection, and adding a definition for the term responsible person. Addressing how a former licensee and responsible person acting on behalf of a former licensee may lawfully liquidate business inventory upon revocation or other termination of their license. And clarifying that licensees must follow the verification and record-keeping procedures in 27 CFR Section 478.94 and Subpart H, rather than using an ATF Form 4473 when firearms are transferred to other licensees, including transfers by a licensed sole proprietor to the person's personal collection. Well, what can you do to fight back and try and stop this infringement? Once the proposed rule is published in the Federal Register, everyone will have 90 days to comment on it. So, comment on it and urge your friends and family who value their constitutional rights to do the same. Also, don't be afraid to call up your representatives and let them know if they want your vote in the future, they better start fighting against this proposed atrocity. If you have any questions about this latest attempt of infringement on your right to bear arms, or any other Second Amendment related questions, be sure to leave them down in the comments section below, or you can email us directly at questions@thefirearmfirm.com. Until next time, stay armed and educated.